Welcome into the Stack Shack podcast. My name is Nathaniel. I'm joined as always with my good buddy Gabe. And wow, do we have a jam-packed episode for you today.
So much stuff.
Just a ton of stuff to get through. We've got Bad Batch, we've got Mortal Kombat, we've got Without Remorse, we've got the end of Falcon Winter Soldier we still got to talk about. So, an absolute jam-packed episode. Gabe, what do you want to start with? Like, there's so much to talk about. What are you thinking? What's on the top of your mind?
Let's go with Without Remorse.
Okay,
Feeling that
yeah.
one first. Yeah.
What
So,
did you? Go ahead.
just audiences, for everyone in the audience who doesn't know, it's an Amazon Prime original starring Michael B. Jordan. It's a military thriller, I would call it.
Yeah.
Let's go with that. Yeah. I thought it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure I would recommend it to others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go into more detail later, but let's hear your thoughts first, Nathaniel.
Yeah. So it's Tom Clancy, big budget, Amazon really going for it, kind of trying to find maybe an action franchise similar to how, Jack Ryan did so well for them. I think they were kind of hoping for the same thing over again with this Tom Clancy adaptation. Michael B. Jordan's a great high-level actor, well-known star. So, I think some of the pieces were there, but I would agree. I just don't. It didn't do anything for me. Like there was nothing new about it, and I would agree. I don't think it's one I would recommend if you are like really into action movies, or you're really just like sitting around on a Saturday or something, and you're like, I feel like watching an action movie. It's serviceable, but I don't think it is particularly impressive in any way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, brought up a good point with the Jack Ryan show on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this would have been a much better series than a movie. Because there are times, spoilers ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, we have his first team, and then we have his second team as things go on, right?
Yeah.
Like these different people that I'd feel, all right, you're just throwing people at me. I don't know who these people are or really care.
I agree.
If you had a bit more time to explore them, much more. I would have liked him a lot more. A lot of the plot points felt they could have been expanded upon.
It felt really rushed all the way through.
Which was weird because there's a lot of, it felt to me, downtime throughout the film. Like some very, here's a very specific, what was the shot? There's a lot where it's like very close up on, not close up. It's framing Michael's character in the center of the shot every time. And it felt like a lot of those lasted longer than they should have, to me. Like I was like, am I supposed to be picking up on something here? And maybe it was supposed to be an emotional moment for the character, and I think Michael B. Jordan did great with his character. I just didn't feel like his character, there wasn't much character to work with.
Yeah, I would agree. It felt very by the book, but also I never, it's supposed to be a kind of a military thriller. I think that's probably the right definition. But I never felt suspense.
Nope.
I never felt like, it kind of had these like small levels of like an espionage and like political games being played, but none of it was fleshed out in a way that made me interested in what was going on or really care. Like you said, I think, and even I just feel like they tried to do way too much.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I'm going to criticize a little bit the marketing of it as well. It was marketed very much as like a Taken, I would almost say.
Yes.
Like this revenge thing. They took his family, now he's going to take everything from them. But when you actually watch it, first of all, the them there isn't one. Um, you know, he's there's the
I mean, he
one
gets his
scene.
revenge right in like the beginning of the film.
Yeah, the one guy, like, there isn't a them, first of all, and really the one scene that felt like very much like, oh yeah, this guy's a badass, he's going in, he's taking everybody out, right? There's like 10 minutes of that in the whole movie,
Mm.
and that's the scene we already had seen in the trailer a bunch of times with him lighting the guy's car on fire.
Like,
And then
yeah,
it goes from that to like he's now in prison, and then
there's a lot
the
of jump
government
cuts where I'm
comes
like,
around, and it just didn't make sense.
there was like a lot of jump cuts where it's like, okay, so you've kidnapped this person in a bathroom. How did you get him out? Oh, we don't want really care to show that. Um,
Yeah.
just a lot of those moments where I was like, oh, suspension of disbelief's gone. Um,
Yeah.
and while there was not a lot of those badass moments, they were good moments. I will give the show that. That. Like when you like in the trailer when you see him taking out uh the prison officers with the riot shields.
Oh yeah, that was
That was a
sick.
great scene. Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was
love that.
awesome.
But then you go from that to like the very last shootout of the movie. It's like, oh, these guys just cannot aim. They're hitting every wall, everyone but Michael's character,
Well,
John.
and
Right?
also Michael, like, has a perfect throwing of every grenade hits a car. That bothered me. I'm sorry. I'm like, and he doesn't look like he's like really
Oh,
on it. He's just hucking grenades, right? And they keep
yeah.
hitting cars, every single one. And I sitting there
Like the
going,
first three grenades, it's like, oh, that's gonna like way off into the distance to scare people. No,
yeah,
that's a car gone. That's a car
yeah.
gone.
It didn't even look, the way he threw them in the shot, the way the shots were lined up, it didn't even look like they were going near those cars, because he'd kind of just lob them up into the air, and then it
Mhm.
hit a car like 2 blocks down. I'd be like, what?
Where did that come from?
Hey, where? What? So I would agree. I didn't feel like the combat um really had
The
an
shootout
impact. Yeah, the
combats, in my
shootout
opinion.
combats were kind of weak. Now, I will say that opening scene was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
sick, of them coming out of the water and taking the guys out, and then even the scene after that with the like RPG and the dropping down and the arms dealership and all of that. I thought that was actually done pretty well. But then that level of like precision in a scene, I didn't see through the rest of the movie. And
Yeah.
like you said, it goes from like this crazy scene in the prison, which was sick,
So
and
good.
that moment, like, where he wraps up his fist and starts the water running and plugs up so that it's slippery and stuff. I'm like, oh, this is sick. This is
He's
cool.
setting up.
Like,
He's
he
ready.
knows he's ready. And then he's splashing water on himself, so he's slippery, And I'm going, okay, that was cool. And it goes through this awesome fight scene, and then the next scene is like they're in a office chatting. Like,
There's a lot
okay,
of just very jarring those instances where it's like, well, this is
yeah,
not what would have
it
happened.
didn't feel
You just beat up
cohesive.
like 6 police officers. I think it was 3, but it felt like 6.
I think it was maybe more than that. Which we know that like he was worried about the Russians getting to him, right, in there,
Yeah.
and so that makes sense or whatever. And then he comes out, but the tone and the way the story moved, it just jumped a lot, and it didn't feel cohesive.
Or satisfying at the end,
No,
to
the
me at
ending was
least.
not very satisfying. No. And like,
Like,
I remember they're like, once they get to, and he's like, you guys go, and he's gonna be the hero. I kind of was like, oh, we're making this like a heroic ending,
yeah. Like,
which
if
is
they
not
had.
what it was marketed as, right?
No. And if they had cut it at the. Um, again, spoilers. If they had cut it. If he had died in the car under the lake, or the river, whatever it was, in
Oh
the water,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have liked it a bit more. Like he said throughout the film, I have nothing left to live after this.
Yeah.
Like that would have he's all in all in, right?
Yep,
And
he's
then
finished
no,
it. He's
no,
got his final revenge, and now he's gone.
yeah, and then it's like no, no, no. Actually, we saved him. Everything's fine.
Yeah, this was a setup to get the guy to
By the way, there's
confess.
no way she could have opened that door. We saw that on MythBusters, but we'll move on from that because I don't
Yeah.
need that science there.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we know that once the car is fully filled with water, it's possible, but before then,
Yeah,
no. Yeah, I agree that the ending, and I understand why they're trying to make it a sequel, right? And I actually haven't read the Tom Clancy that it's based off of. I'm pretty sure it is a series of books with him as the main character.
send our research guy to go look at that right now.
Yeah. But for me, even if this, if you're setting this up, which it was set up by Amazon with how they ended it as like an origin story for this action hero, they tried to do too much, in my opinion. They didn't flesh out anything about the character. They didn't make him like, I feel for the guy because, they kill his wife and child. Like, that's horrific. And I understand that. But then it goes from that like emotional, and then it's like, okay, this is a revenge. The whole first half is revenge, and then the second half is like spy thriller. And it just didn't flow for me.
For sure.
So, out of 10, final review, what are you thinking on it?
I'll give it a 5.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very, very average to me.
Mm-hmm.
Almost a 4, but I'm gonna keep it at a 5.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it a 4 as 4 myself. The other thing that I just thought of is it's rated R.
There's some language, but I don't think there's
But the
anything
violence is not that. Like, if you're gonna go military violence, then go military violence, right?
Yeah, I was expecting like 12 strong.
Yeah, or 13 hours or
Yeah, 13 hours. That's what I
something
was
like
thinking
that. Yeah, I was expecting kind of 13 hours with the way it was shot.
There wasn't even that
There
much
was
language either.
it's not even rated for language. The R rating is literally just for violence. And they didn't even really do much with the violence, in my opinion. And I'm like, if you want to do realistic, because that's, in my opinion, if you're not going to go realistic, then you shouldn't go for an R rating. Just make it PG-13. It's very easy to make a movie and have plenty of emotional impact and make it PG-13. But if you're going for like, I don't want to have rules on me. I want to be realistic and have language and have violence. Then do that. But I don't think they did that. It's kind of like a.
Well, I think that's part of what Amazon Prime's really been pushing, that we're going to have a lot of our content for whatever they want to put it as, right?
That's true.
Like, have what's the evil superhero show?
Oh, The Boys.
The Boys, yeah. That's insane amounts of gore, right, and everything. Yeah. And then even they have the animated show they have now. I know it's really gory. The superhero one they have for
Invincible or whatever.
Yeah, that one. So I think Amazon's just been trying to push for, we're just gonna have a lot of our content because we'll be we'll just have that instead of Netflix.
We'll be for the adults.
Yeah.
Disney Plus is for the kids.
But I don't. So I think that's why they did that. I just don't see what the point is for Without Remorse if you're not gonna add any of that stuff that you've already shown. We don't care if that's on our platform.
Yeah, exactly. And they just didn't have it. I mean, I appreciate not having sexual content just randomly thrown in, because I would agree that I would have a complaint if it was R because of sexual content and violence. I would have the same complaint of like, okay, that didn't fit in the story at all. But if you're gonna go for R, then then feel free to throw language and violence in. Otherwise, don't go for R and make it PG-13. This movie could have easily been PG-13.
Oh yeah, easy.
Without question. I think it gives you a better audience, and that's a better idea. But I didn't do it, so whatever. And so yeah, 4 for me. Prime. Yep, a bit of a miss from Amazon Prime, and I've liked a lot of their stuff too. So I was excited for it, and a little disappointed.
Yeah, like I enjoyed the Jack Ryan series. Haven't gotten
Mm,
through it, but from what I've seen, like, oh, I like it
mm-hmm.
a lot more than Without Remorse so far. But
Yeah.
what do you feel like covering next? Done a good job of going Without Remorse.
Well, let's do the movies first, and then we'll jump over to the shows. So, Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
Here's HBO Max. You know, another one of those that released there. Now, did you see it in theaters or on HBO Max?
I watched it on HBO Max.
Okay.
I didn't have a chance to go watch it in theaters.
Yeah, same.
Just time wise, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep, same. I did not watch it in theaters. I watched it on HBO Max. Um, we were hyping it up on the podcast. I know we were talking about
Oh,
it. We
yeah.
were excited for it.
Right.
Did it meet expectations for you? What did you feel about it?
So, the director kind of set expectations. I'm
That's
not
true.
doing anything other than making it a great martial arts film, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make it as like an homage to the game.
Yeah.
And I think it did a fairly good job of that. So that being my expectations, it met them. Maybe not as well as I would have liked.
Yeah.
It was better than Without Remorse. I will say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's definitely some issues I have.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly that I think we talked about this on one of the episodes of how all the trailer looks sick, but that might be all the cool fight scenes, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like there was a ton more outside of what we saw in the trailer.
Yep.
And that was my biggest complaint. Like there's some good like the training scenes. There were some great fights there, but they weren't Scorpion stabbing someone through the chest with his chain, right?
Yeah.
So if they had leaned more into fight scenes, just throw them in there. We don't need as much of this character stuff. I would have been happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
A bit happier. Same with it's like the Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yeah.
We're not coming here for I don't even Kane's story, right? We don't really care about that.
Yeah.
We're here to see him punch someone's face in.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, comparing Godzilla, King Kong to Mortal Kombat, I think Godzilla, King Kong did a better job of just focusing on the fights than Mortal Kombat did. I would agree.
Yeah.
I think with the expectations, you have to set expectations. I think the director did a good job. It was like, I'm just gonna sit here. It was your like popcorn watching movie, your snacking movie, right?
Except for certain moments, like they really leaned. Oh, this is an R movie. We're going to go into that gore.
And I appreciated that. So you come in as a cynical individual like myself and are like, all right, I'm gonna see some absolute destruction of these characters, and it's gonna be awesome. Let's do this.
There were some good destruction.
And there was some good destructions. But I would agree with you. I felt like if you watched all the trailers and
that first 7 minutes,
watched the first
YouTube.
7 scenes, the 7 minutes that was on YouTube, you kind of got what you needed. I do think the fighting was well done, but my one complaint is too many quick cuts.
Yeah, the scenes were sometimes hard to follow.
They were hard to follow, and they didn't have the impact. Like when we talked about how I was nerding out last episode about Netflix's like the way they do fight scenes with the like camera angle following the action, and it's just awesome, and I love that. I wish they would have done some things like that to make the impacts of the moves and the hits and the punches and the kicks actually land.
Yep. Like just right off the top of my head, like Scorpion throwing his chain. If you had a shot where it's like from the perspective of the chain, right, like following the base of the knife.
Yeah.
That would have been a sick shot.
And it goes through his body and pops out the other end.
Yeah,
that'd be so sick.
Maybe you have some like blood splecks on the what we think of as the lens.
Yeah,
that would have been
sick.
Cool. Just things like that. They
throw me into the action. I think Kano carried, as everybody has kind of said. He did a great job.
So
He
I
was
watched it
totally
with
watchable. Go ahead.
I watched it with my girlfriend. There's one line where they first meet Liu Kang.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he basically he puts his hand on his shoulder and says whatever, I forget what the line, and he walks off, and Kano just has he's the one line, just the f bomb right there, and we were dying. That was
Yeah.
such a good delivery of that line.
It's perfect. Yeah, they did a good job with Kano, and they did a good job. There was enough of the like campy humor in it that we know and love from Mortal Kombat, so it felt at home.
Oh yeah.
Um, the violence, they did crank it up and have it there. I would have liked, like you said, a few more fight scenes.
Hmm.
Um, I think our main character is a little weak.
It's a little generic.
It's a little generic. And here's my complaint with it is we do the whole movie and again, I actually did enjoy it. I liked it. Um but the director's talking about we're making this a martial arts movie. We're trying to stay true to the games and what made the games fun. And I think that's why it was such a success is because they did such a good job at that. But why did you have to invent a new character to be the main
Yeah.
character?
Yeah.
You could have easily had one of the other myriad of Mortal Kombat characters be the main character. And you could tell the same story without inventing a new character. My thought is if you're going to invent a new character, you got to have some like very specific plan and execute on a really great idea with that main character.
Yeah. There's got to be a reason you're changing.
There's got to be a reason you're adding a new character. And I didn't really feel like there was much of a reason there. Scorpion,
Honestly,
though, at the end,
oh, dude, that was my favorite fight scene easily. I think that's a pretty
yeah,
large consensus there, right?
yeah,
Um, dude, that was such a good fight.
it was sick.
But yeah, like
Absolutely
with
awesome.
you could have easily told the same story, just having it focused on Jack Spriggs and Sonya Blade.
Yeah.
Just have those two be your main characters. You're fine. You could have done the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No reason not to.
Yep. There's no reason we have to have this other character in. And honestly, at the end, I was like, man, I wish I could have seen more Scorpion or more Jax or more like that's where it came down to his, the new characters abilities
Take
and
up too much
stuff
screen
and
time.
and he took up screen time that I was like I kind of would have rather had more fight scenes with Kano. That would have been
Yeah.
cool.
Like the lizard fight scene was also sick too.
That
I
was
can't remember the
so
lizard's
sick.
name.
Yeah.
I'm not into the Mortal Kombat lore, so don't crucify me if you want. It's okay.
Yeah.
But there's like I would say I think my least favorite fight scene is the one with Kane and the guy with four arms. I
Yeah.
can't remember his name now.
It just
But
wasn't
beside
that great.
like I liked all the fight scenes. Again,
Yes,
if
they
they
were
hadn't
all
done the
really
jump
good.
cuts as much, would have been better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if they did
they
some
were
of
still
the
serviceable.
yeah, no, they're still good. If they had done some of the X-ray like visuals, I think that would have been a fun like how they like the
Homage, yeah.
finishers in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Those would have been. I would have appreciated that at least.
That
for
would have
me.
been a cool touch.
Might have fit weird into the movie, but I think it would have been cool.
I mean, you already have somebody get sawed in half by a hat, so I mean,
And then they gave us the finisher lines too. I appreciated
yes, that was cool.
Flawless victory.
Yes, exactly. I really did appreciate that. And I think it sets a good precedence for what I hope it does is it sets a precedence for video game adaptation movies in the future.
Yeah.
Because I think what Mortal Kombat showed and did is say, hey, everybody loves these games. We're going to take what everybody loves about the games and that's what we're going to focus on. And I think that's been a problem with video game adaptations up to this point. They try and like make their own movies. So for example, Monster Hunter. Oh gosh.
But yeah, Assassin's Creed.
Well, we could take any of them, but actually Monster Hunter is not a bad idea. Monster Hunter. What's fun about Monster Hunter? Going and killing monsters. And
figuring
hunting
out its
monsters,
weakness,
yeah,
tracking it down, this
tracking it
long drawn
down,
out
get all
boss
the
fight.
get all this loot, right? One, any looting game is not going to translate to a movie very well because the half of the dopamine rush you get from playing a game like that is from getting loot, and you're not going to have that happen in the movie, and you can't like communicate that. Like that little glowing blob on the ground that makes you get super excited while you're playing. If they put that in the movie, it's not going to be that cool, you
No,
know?
no, they just shoot confetti out in the theater. That's the loot
Yeah,
right there.
there you go. There you go. But so there's an example. Assassin's Creed. What did people love about Assassin's Creed? Now, Assassin's Creed does have a story to an extent that people enjoyed, but
Yeah,
what it was Assassin's Creed groundbreaking in? It was groundbreaking in its stealth mechanics
stealth, open world
and open
time.
world. That's really hard to translate to a movie, to be fair. And I will also say that Assassin's Creed is one of my favorite video game adaptations that we've had so far. I think it did better than most others. Um, but again, it's hard. Like World of Warcraft, the movie,
You
it
can't
just
translate that very
missed
well.
on what was fun about the game, right? And
Well,
so
not
that's
just that,
why. Go ahead.
but like with say Monster Hunter and
Hmm.
World of Warcraft, they both have these, World of Warcraft especially, very large, expansive, like the lore behind the game, right?
That's true. Yeah.
That people in the community love. There's whole
Hmm.
YouTube channels dedicated to analyzing the lore of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
From what I heard about it after watching the movie, that wasn't shown very well.
Yeah.
Like they followed some of the loose storylines, but they didn't delve into the world as much as people would have
Yeah.
wanted.
It should have been a really hardcore, like, world building movie,
Yeah,
not as
like so,
much on these characters,
yes,
and they failed. So I'm hoping that people will take a page out of Mortal Kombat's book and go, oh, okay, before we do a movie adaptation, what made the game fun? And are we capable of putting that on the screen? And if you're not, that's okay. Just don't make that a game. You know what I mean? Don't make that
different
a movie.
mediums don't have, yeah, doesn't have to be a part
It's
of every medium,
totally
right?
fine. Exactly. And so I think coming up, looking forward to Last of Us and
The
Uncharted,
Halo TV series,
maybe a Halo TV series, right? I think
Uncharted
Last
though
of Us
especially.
and our Uncharted are finally people going, okay, before we just willy-nilly start making video games into movies, let's try and think about what kind of video game we're dealing with and does it translate well to a movie? And I think both of those do because they're very
Yes,
story driven. Um,
and the
but
gameplay
again,
elements aren't ones where you're gonna feel hindered if you try to put it on the screen, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say, like I like the Hitman movie that adaptation,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it fell flat in some moments because part of what made Hitman fun is I'm gonna figure out how to make the target, right? What am I
Yeah.
gonna do to take this person out? And you don't get that in the movie.
Nope, you don't.
Uncharted and Last of Us don't have that. That's not as huge a focus in the
True.
games.
True. Yep. And I think, but again, even in those cases, you got to take what made those games fun, right? Like Uncharted, right? You got to nail Nathan Drake's character. You got to have the like living on the edge kind of vibes. And I think you could do it. But I'm hoping they'll take a page out of Mortal Kombat. I hope we get a sequel to Mortal Kombat
Yes,
to be
I mean,
sick.
did pretty well in the, like, I don't know about the box office, but I haven't looked up how well did it do on the first week.
I think it did, from what I've heard, it did pretty well. Um, and it was one of those that the fans enjoyed, I think.
Yeah,
And other reviews have been, I think, mostly positive from people that went in knowing what to expect, and from people that were fans of the games as well. Critics that don't have a backstory on Mortal Kombat at all, or were going in and getting on their high horses of like cinema, uh, maybe didn't like it as much, but um, on the other fronts of the people that came in with the right expectations, I think they really enjoyed it from what I've read.
okay. Well, yeah, I think should set a precedent for what video game movies are going to be like in the future.
Mhm.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Totally. All right. Let's talk Falcon Winter Soldier.
Oh boy. I'm a week late. I'm sorry, guys. I was behind. It's my
Yeah,
fault.
Gabe was a little slow, but we won't hold
Yep.
that against him too much. What'd you think of the show? Well, this is a full series. Spoilers ahead. We expect you've probably seen it already by now.
Deep dive.
I guess if you haven't seen it, go watch it because I think both of us really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, so go watch it and come back. But we're gonna assume pretty much everybody's seen it. What'd you think of it? The
I
sequel to
enjoyed it a lot.
WandaVision.
I think WandaVision did better to me personally. Like how the concept and execution of WandaVision, what they were trying to portray, I felt they did a better job.
Yeah.
But I really liked Falcon Winter Soldier. I loved the bromance between Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Like their interactions, loved it.
Yep.
Loved it so
It's
much.
very good.
I think. Oh, I can't. Is it? What's
Zemo?
I know it's Kurt
Or-
Russell's son. What's his name though? John Russell.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, I think it's John. Well, John is his name
I know it's
in
John
the show.
Walker.
Yeah, I
but-
don't remember. I can't think of his name right now. But go ahead. We all know what we're talking about.
His portrayal of Captain America, not Captain, but of John Walker, Captain America.
Yeah,
Wyatt Russell, that's his name.
Wyatt. That's right.
He did so good. I saw something talking about like, oh, he's one of those actors where he did so good at his role that everyone hates him personally for it now.
Yes. We just despise him.
Yeah, no, like everyone hates John Walker, right?
Yep.
Or at least most people. And Wyatt Russell's that was so good. How they set that up, how he acted.
He was annoying.
He was annoying
and he did a great job.
Unhinged.
Yep.
And loved it.
Yep.
Loved it. And I like what it's setting up for future Marvel content. I'd say.
I would agree. I think this is another one similar to WandaVision. I would agree. I think WandaVision executed a little bit better on their like goal. Not that it was a total miss in any way, but I just think, if you're comparing the two, WandaVision I think executed a little better. But I think that might also be partially on us as viewers' fault. Because
comparing what came first.
Well, what came first, but also I think going into it, a lot of people were expecting like back to the Marvel formula. And it really more followed the WandaVision formula, where we're going to take this idea and we're going to dissect it. The show is not really about John Walker, or it's not really about them going after the Flag Smashers. That's not really the point. It's really about exploring the legacy and the symbolism of the shield. And does it matter who has it? And what is the symbolism behind it? And what does this shield mean to different people?
And what does America mean to people?
And what does America mean? Because we've tied the shield to Captain America. So how do we distinguish between those two? And also, who was Steve Rogers, right? And what is the shield apart from him, right? And I think the show overall did a really good job of exploring all those ideas. But if you came into the show expecting like typical Marvel heroes versus villains, that wasn't what you were going to get.
I mean, one of the things I noticed along those lines is that one of the heroes of the show, we have John Walker, don't like. But the main villain, Carly?
Yeah.
I think it's Carly. I don't remember if Carly or Carla. You sympathize with her a lot more than you sympathize with John Walker throughout the whole film. Or not film, the series.
Yep.
Interesting take.
It's an interesting take for sure. And you see, I think the other thing you get to see a lot of is what the serum does. And like that comment that John's friend, kind of his wingman, says, like it just emphasizes what's already there. Right? and it kind of and it goes back to even back at first Avenger, right, when they were picking who is Captain America going to be, who's going to get this serum. They had a lot of the, you know, perfect soldier types that were big and strong and fast and, you know, ready to rock and roll. But they chose Steve because he was little, but he also was a good person. He was a nice person. He knew restraint. Um, and I think, you know, we come to John Walker, and what does the military do? They pick their best soldier, and he struggles, and then he gets the serum, and it just emphasizes that, like, inner aggression, um, and causes problems. And I think it gives a even more respect for Steve and like how one in a million he was. You know what I mean? Um, and then you also have, you know, Falcon sitting here going, I'm not worthy of the shield. But then if you give it up, you know, somebody else taking it, and, you know, the safest hands are our own kind of an idea for sure.
Yeah. And I also liked along those same lines, like how Zemo knew, like he's helped
Mm-hmm.
create all this, and he's like, no, it's bad, we're out,
It's
no,
bad.
none of that.
He could have
And
taken the serum when it like falls on the floor, but instead he just crushes them all
you
because
could
he
see the
knows it's
hesitation
bad.
too.
There was a moment there.
Um, yeah, they definitely played into how the serum works,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm as much as there are some issues I have with the show, right? Um, that scene where Walker stands up and there's just blood on the shield, right?
Yeah,
That's a headline. Like
that
that's
is.
you put that's gonna live in my mind for a long
Yep,
time.
that's chills everywhere.
Yes.
When I saw him doing that, like hitting him, you know, he's beating him up with the shield. I'm like, oh, they're gonna show a bloody shield. That is gonna be the most. Just a great shot, and they did such a great shot because it's like the classic Captain America pose there, except
Yep.
the shield is
Yep.
all bloody, and it's like, oh, he's ruined the legacy. You know,
It,
he's on camera ruining this legacy that he had to try and uphold. He failed.
and the other thing is, at least I to me it felt like this. Maybe not for other people. Uh, they used Captain America and his legacy to also feel just as not necessarily a stand-in, but also to use as like America, not just Captain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, here's what the GCR, or what I think it's the GCR, whatever
Something
that
like that. Yeah.
organization, the votes and everything. How, hey, this was America back when it was Steve Rogers, and now this is the America with John Walker.
Mm.
Maybe that's just me, but that's how it felt towards the end of the show.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know. I
there's so much symbolism in that show, and I really appreciated it. I really liked it. I loved the just all the discussions that were had. Um it made for great in between episode talks with friends, you know. Um and again, that weekly release schedule, I think there's something to it. But
yep.
yeah, it
Even
was
if I
really
didn't
good.
stick to it this time.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It was really solid. What do you think about what it sets up, where it's moving?
So we already know there's going to be another Captain America movie with Sam, right?
Yeah,
Um, we see, oh, John Walker's now this super soldier agent of the United States,
yeah,
or whoever that lady works for.
U.S. agent.
Um,
Yeah,
and then we have Sharon as the power broker.
yeah.
I did not see that one coming. Like I didn't see her turning that far, but excited to see where that goes. I don't know exactly what it's going to set up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Zemo felt kind of solidly put away with I can't say
Ooh.
their name. I don't know how solidly put away, and I feel like U.S. agent might have something to do with breaking him out at some point.
Yeah,
But
so my thought was Zemo is on the raft, which we've seen people get broken out of there before.
yes,
We also
So
know that the raft is where they stick the most
the superpowered criminals.
the superpowered villains, really. Um, so I think it's well, and we also know that from the comics, we have Zemo forming his own group of kind of anti-heroes.
Oh, you think he's gonna form a group within the raft?
Yeah, I think they just gave Zemo access to some of the most dangerous people on the planet. And I think it sets up my whole theory of superhero or supervillain team up. Or we have what a lot of people have been speculating is we have John Walker forming an anti-Avengers,
The
right?
Dark
The
Avengers.
Dark Avengers. And then maybe we have Zemo kind of flipping to the good side, so to speak, with a bunch of anti-heroes fighting those Dark Avengers. I think that might be
Possibly.
interesting.
I mean, the show did a good job of making me like Zemo somehow.
Yeah, somehow I hated him, and then I kind of liked him.
That scene where he's dancing in the club,
him.
that was
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. You understand him, I think. You see, he truly is, he just hates all enhanced individuals. It's nothing about those individuals. It is just, if you are enhanced, you are playing with stuff you shouldn't be playing with, and I'm going to shut you down. So I think it's kind of interesting. Sharon being the power broker. I have issues. And
Such as?
not with her being the power broker either. I would have been fine with that. I just think in the show, her actions, especially when they first meet her, make absolutely no sense. And here's why. When they first show up to Madripoor, those guys come up and are like, the power broker doesn't want you here. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they go and meet with Homie, or
Who they
Homegirl.
think the power broker was.
They go and meet with Homegirl, who, no, they knew she wasn't the power broker, but she, was the direct underling. Seemed to be, right?
Yeah.
If the power broker wanted them out, right, wanted to get rid of them, why does Sharon then rescue them? She sends these guys, she apparently sent these guys to kick him out. And then they go and they're trying to get some information. And then their cover gets blown.
And she helps them get the super soldier guy.
And she helps them go get the super soldier guy.
The scientist, yeah. Forget his name now.
But how does that, if you say, okay, Sharon's goal was she was just trying to get after the Flag Smashers.
Yeah.
She in no way would need to take them to her super serum guy.
No. And she didn't even want to go after the Flag Smashers because she could get more muscle already with the super soldier guy.
Exactly. So her whole motivation for eventually really needing to kill the Flag Smashers and gain control of them was because the super serum guy got killed and all of his stuff was gone. But
and
she's the one that set that
happen.
up.
Yep.
And then also, all those guys show up to kill them when they're talking with Super Serum Guy, and she kills all of them. You think they wouldn't know,
Well, part of what made her the power broker is that no one knew she was the power broker, right? That's part of her cover.
Well, Carly did.
Towards the end, no, didn't she only find out after?
No, she knew she was the power broker when she saw her.
Oh, okay.
So maybe these guys are lower level goons. But let's say Power Broker's idea is to have them come in, find the super serum guy, and just keep following them. Why does she send a bunch of goons that she then has to kill?
I thought the goons were sent because they killed the underling lady.
No.
When she died, there's a whole text that went out
yeah, so there's
bounty
the bounty
on their heads.
But this is the power broker is above underling lady, right?
Right. Yeah.
So she should have if we're going.
Oh, you're saying she should have canceled the bounty.
She could have easily she could have canceled the bounty. Two, here is her perfect opportunity to seize all control of all of those goons as well, right? Like, now there's a power vacuum with one of her underlings that she could easily fill.
Mm.
And why are you sending, like, why don't you just call off the goons and be like, no, I got this. I got it covered. A bunch
I
of
don't know.
that did not make sense to me for her to then turn out to be a power broker. I don't have a problem with her being the power broker. I just had major issues with the beginning of that,
The
the
setup
setup of it, because it made no sense for her to be a power broker, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. There was definitely issues there.
That's
Could have
probably
been
my
resolved a bit
biggest
better.
complaint with the whole show.
Yeah.
And again, I do really like the show, but if I was going to complain about something, that was it. What do you think setting up in the future? What are you foreseeing? What do you think? Who do you think that Julia Dreyfus's character? Where do you think she fits
the
in?
the Val,
Val, yeah.
I can see her being, not to compare it to DC, but I mean it's the most apt comparison I can think of.
Okay.
She feels like an Amanda Waller,
Mm.
the Suicide Squad director
Yeah.
lady.
Okay.
That's kind of the feeling I'm getting. Like, she's ruthless. She has ambitions that we aren't going to necessarily know about.
Yeah.
She just covering all of that with her little kind of like sweet veneer, I
Mm-hmm.
guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what her goal is, but I definitely feel like she's going to be a major player in some of these upcoming movies or TV shows.
Yeah. I almost see her as being like a anti Nick Fury.
Yeah,
That's kind of the
in
vibe I'm
essence.
getting.
And like when you're saying John Walker's going to get the Dark Avengers, she's going to be the Nick Fury behind them.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm seeing as well.
I'm just interested to see how. So if we get that, and we get Zemo making his own team, maybe, right?
Yeah.
We know Zemo's going to be a player somehow.
Yeah.
And now we have Sharon as the power broker. I keep saying pawn.
Mm-hmm.
We got all these interesting forces on Earth right now, and I don't think they're going to go like into space. Besides, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor and such, I don't think they're going to pull anything onto Earth anytime soon. So I'm interested to see how all these new factions on the planet are going to interact. Especially since we know the Flag Smashers are still a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not the soldiers, but like that movement is still a thing.
Yeah.
Or potentially. There's just a lot of factions that I think will be interesting to see how they interact.
I do too.
In the future.
It's going to be they're building some stuff that's really cool. I think Nick Fury is going to be an interesting character. I've heard rumors that they're like he's behind Sharon, right? He's running Sharon as the power broker. I don't know about that, but that'd be interesting. We have rumors of Nick Fury in both. So we kind of have we've had two shows, and both of them people are suspecting Nick Fury behind things. One, we have him maybe behind Sharon.
And then we know that he might be the one who beamed up the girl from WandaVision.
Exactly.
Can't think of her name.
So that's going to be interesting. And then I just remembered Thunderbolts is the name of the group that Baron Zemo creates in the comics of a bunch of reformed super criminals.
Okay.
And I really think that's where we're going. Now, in the comics, they originally come across as good guys, but then it turns out they were like stealing stuff and trying to just convince the authorities that they were heroes so they could take over. We'll see if that comes out. But they're also very often along with the Dark Avengers. So I think it really does set itself up well for that kind of a thing.
Okay. Interesting. Could definitely work.
Could be interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I mean, they've had two solid shows, in my opinion.
Yep.
And now I'm even more excited for Loki somehow.
Yep. Somehow.
I was not ready to be excited about Marvel at all this year, and here it is.
And here I am. Here we are talking about it.
Yeah, I would give Falcon Winter Soldier solid 8.5. I would say.
Yeah, I would agree
for the overall series.
I would say probably an 8. I think WandaVision was a 9 for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, an 8, very solid, very watchable, definitely something I'd recommend.
Especially if you like Marvel.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, you definitely kind of have to have Marvel backstory for the impact of things.
For sure.
Because whoo, yeah.
Right.
All
Well,
right,
last topic of the night.
on to the greatest cinematic universe.
Oh, bold claims from here.
Fight me, fight me. Bad Batch. Episode
Oh,
1. And yes, we are going to cover every single episode every single week on the
oh
podcast.
yeah.
Don't worry
It's
about it.
Star Wars. We
It's
have to do
Star
it. It's
Wars.
Star
We're doing
Wars.
every episode. We ain't waiting for the whole season to be out like Falcon Winter Soldier. We're doing every episode. Episode 1, a long extended episode, hour and 15 minutes. What did you think?
I loved it. I'm down for the idea.
Yeah.
Down for the concept. The setup. I'm ready. Clones on the run after Order 66. Ready?
Yeah.
You've sold me. This is the
Yep.
part of the universe I want to see more of, and they're hitting it.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree. It was amazing. I have to say, the opening scene with the Order 66 and Caleb Doom, who hopefully you guys all caught it, but if you didn't, that's the kid that becomes Kanan Jarrus in Rebels.
Okay,
I
haven't
love
seen Rebels yet, so
Gabe.
not all. I know. It's hard to get through for me.
Gabe.
But I recognize that he was that Jedi. Mainly because they had, is it the same voice actor? Because the
it did
Padawan
sound
started
very
talking,
similar.
and I was so jarred. I was like, this
Yeah.
is not the voice of a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
This is a 37-year-old, full chest.
Yeah. So yes, that's the guy that becomes Kanan in Rebels. And if you've watched Rebels, you know how his story goes and all the stuff behind it. And you know that the only thing you really knew about him as a Jedi was that his master sacrificed herself so he could escape. But being able to see that on screen, this is why I love Dave Filoni. He'll take like one line of dialogue from something and then show it to you, right? And man, was it well done. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
we'll see his character probably come back, but I thought that was a great little homage to the universe, so we get to see that.
Well, and then just seeing some of the other Order 66 things happening. Like there's the one taken directly from Revenge of the Sith, translated to the animated with General Grievous, right?
Yes.
Loved seeing that. Those moments. It's what Dave Filoni's best at.
Yep. And it feels all connected. I love that it feels all connected all the time.
Oh yeah. And then we got it like another. We saw AV. I can't remember. It's the cute long string of numbers. We see him again. Oh, that was like 3 episodes of Clone Wars, and now he's back.
Yep.
Let's go.
It's great. It's great. The little nods that make it feel connected, but we can still show this new universe. I really like. I know we even coming into this, we were like, I bet because of their disabilities, quote unquote disabilities,
Defects.
their defects, that probably meant the inhibitor chip wasn't functioning.
I like how we saw that it wasn't. It was like a different extent for everyone too.
That was cool. Now here's my one like little maybe complaint. I don't necessarily agree with this, but I know a lot of people, when they first revealed that the clones had inhibitor chips, were felt like something was taken away from the clones a little bit, in that it removed the, like, you couldn't explore the idea of like the comment was, it was so compelling that these troops were just going to follow orders no matter what they were, and it was an avenue for exploration of, should you just follow orders no matter what. I personally like the inhibitor chips better because I think it humanizes the tragedy of the clones. Like the
Yes.
whole Clone Wars is really just a tragedy, right? So many Jedis are killed, so many people are harmed through the war, and these clones, in the end, you watch Clone Wars and you get to know all of them, and they have personalities, and you get to appreciate them, and you see that they are more than droids. They do have
Hmm.
emotions, and they do have logic, and they can think through things. And then it's the tragedy that none of them knew that they had a chip in their brain that the moment Order 66 goes out that they would have to follow it.
Yeah.
And so I liked that. But I think we with Crosshair, we could have had a one individual character study on a person who was just like, no, I'm just following orders 100%. Um, and so I think that was maybe a slightly missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Um,
They didn't
to
need to force him.
like, I would have. I'm fine with him as the villain, but maybe not the main villain. But I think he would have been just a tragic case of Tarkin manipulating someone, and someone just getting caught up in like, this is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to follow orders. I have to follow orders in this situation. I don't really know what's going on, but I know these are my orders and I'm going to follow them. I don't know
Yeah.
the big picture, that soldier mentality. Um, and I think that would have been fun to explore and then contrast with the rest of the Bad Batch, who are like, no, we, as they said a couple times, when has following orders been something
That's not
we have a
us.
problem? That's not us. So I think that would have been cool. I don't mind that they do the inhibitor chip and that, it was working a little bit and then they enhance it and really take him over.
Yeah.
Um,
Just maybe a missed opportunity.
but maybe a little bit of a missed opportunity. I know as I was watching, I was like, oh, okay, that I could have seen that could have been a fun way to still have the same like character exploration and impact in studying that. Um, that that was that people originally thought was going on with the clones, but in the end, it's not a big deal. What did you think, Gabe, of our little friend Omega and her character?
Omega's pretty interesting. Uh, it's like we we've been established in the Clone Wars universe, just all Star Wars, right? Clones don't get names unless they're given to them by their other clones.
Mm-hmm.
The Kaminoan introduced Omega as Omega. That
That's
not
true.
her, not her clone number, none of that. Didn't even say she was a clone. Just this is Omega.
Mm.
That's really intriguing to me. Like this is obviously special to the Kaminoans, even more so than the Bad Batch, because they still refer to them as their serial numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Is it serial number? I'm just gonna call it serial number.
Yeah.
Um, and then Omega means the end. So is she like
The
the
ultimate clone.
epitome of clones, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. She had some interesting powers like perception. She could fire blaster even though she's never done that before.
Yeah.
Accurately.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Very much so. Is she the first female clone we've had?
I think so.
That was the other thing that I was interested in. Is she in all of the um
All of Clone Wars, all of the extended universe
we've never
stuff.
seen a female clone for one that I can think of.
Hmm.
Um but also they are saying it's a she. Like at first I was like, well maybe, it's a they, or maybe I don't know. But they're definitely making it obvious that it's a she, so I feel like that might have something to do with it.
Possibly. Maybe
I
she's
had
gonna be like
never
the mother of
thought,
all clones or something.
yeah, something in that way. I think it's interesting that you bring up Omega. I had actually not even thought about that being the end.
Mm.
Um, that's a really interesting point and kind of like the penultimate or the ultimate clone.
Yeah.
Um, I am thinking she's force sensitive.
Oh, that would be intriguing.
That's my thought.
Well,
And I think
also,
it would allow us to see some of the perception, right? It would explain
mhm,
that. It would also
and
explain some of the like just being able to fire a blaster and some of the other things. I feel like
precognition
she might be force sensitive. That's my theory.
would be if the Kaminoans can make a force-sensitive clone, like they can pump out an army of Jedis. So that would be why she's Omega,
Yep.
possibly.
Yep. Now, we have to remember that Clone Force 99, um, from what we can see, they seem to have been all accidents.
Hmm.
Like, it wasn't the Kaminoans, they weren't sitting there going, okay, we're going to mess with these things and try and give this one strength and this one. Like, they were just messing with genes and they accidentally popped one
They
out,
got this. Yeah,
Um, and so I think that would be interesting as to how protective they seem to be of Omega.
that they
Um,
purposely did this.
that they, well, I'm not saying purposely. I'm just saying they got so lucky that they got a force
Mm.
sensitive one that they're like, we cannot lose this one. Like this one is very important. I think it's also interesting she seemed to be involved with the medical team. Maybe some
Yeah,
force healing, right? That's a very common
intriguing.
intriguing idea there. Um
Also, just the fact that she was being escorted around by a Kaminoan,
yes.
like someone, not just like didn't feel like a lower level one. Like this is like second in command.
Mhm. Mhm. Definitely seem to be elevated.
Interesting.
It is
Also,
very. Go ahead.
speculative now.
Mhm.
We're talking about how maybe she's the last clone, but we've seen in other medium, like the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm pretty sure there's other ones of this. I could be wrong, but we know that the Empire has to come back and quell a clone uprising on Camino.
Yeah.
Do you think we might see something along those lines
So
in Bad Batch?
I don't.
Okay.
Um I went into it wondering if that would be the case, but just from like Tarkin coming and everybody there kind of trying to like kiss up to him a little bit, like their leaders like, well, you're going to need troops to help solidify the empire. Like they seem to be kind of sticking to they're like our contracts are still good, right? They seem to be sticking to their we're creating soldiers and we're going to keep creating soldiers for whoever's in power and we want to
Mhm.
keep that seat at the table, that like we're more efficient than anybody, that you can, cuz he says conscription, well, we could just get people to do that, which we know is ultimately what they ended up doing, right? To some extent.
Yeah.
Um to
Started
keep
mixing
filling.
in with the clones and
Yeah,
the stormtrooper ranks.
as the clones got older and started dying off or just not being as effective. um but I think that's something for sure that I feel like it it's putting them on a path where they're going to be working with the empire and not have an uprising.
Okay.
um and I think the inhibitor chips, we're not going to have, there's not going to be a lot of sympathetic clones. um
No, unless they run into Captain Rex.
unless they run into Captain Rex. I think that's going to be interesting. Will we see Captain Rex or Ahsoka? Um, I
Uh,
have a feeling we won't,
yeah.
but if we
But,
do,
I mean, we know
it'd be
Filoni's really good at bringing like popular characters just to throw in to a show.
yep. So maybe we'll
And
see them in a moment. Maybe they'll talk to Rex for some advice or something. I think that would be cool. Um,
maybe like a little skirmish when neither side knows that the other side's ready. Like
mhm.
the other side is free.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting to me is I'm thinking about the whole show, you know, together. Um, I really like how we've set this up as a clone's perspective of the rising of the empire, because that's never something we've seen. But I also wonder, how are we going to write the end of their story? Because
We don't see them in any other media,
We
any
don't
other
see them
shows.
anywhere else. So what happened to them? And I think that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Then again, we thought the same with like Ahsoka in Clone Wars, because we don't see Ahsoka in any other medium until Rebels, right?
until
and now,
Rebels came out, right? But
Mandalorian.
and then Mandalorian, yeah. That's true. That's true. That's true. And I think there is a place where we could have them go a lot deeper. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Have them go a lot further and be I mean that's the beauty I think of the Star Wars universe. Um is it really feels like a universe, like it's big and
Yeah.
there's characters doing all sorts of things all over the place.
At
Um
any given
at
point in
any
the
given moment,
universe's history.
right? I think that's what was so cool about the end of Clone Wars, where we're like seeing what
The
Ahsoka was
connections.
doing at the same time, because it's perfectly logical that she would be somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
You know, and we're seeing, different characters at different times, and we know Ahsoka lived through, 4, 5, and 6, but we never saw her in any of those, right? But at this point, the universe feels so big that I don't have a problem with that. I'm like, okay, yeah, she was just doing other things. Like, she
I
isn't.
also like how with Clone Wars to a lesser extent, but Bad Batch and Mandalorian, and they've been expanding the universe to be not quite as focused on just Skywalker and his bloodline, right?
Yes.
They've like we're not going to focus on just this one Jedi. We're gonna let's broaden it out. We have a whole universe to work with. Let's
Hmm.
focus on some other things,
There's lots of
which
other
I'm a fan
characters
of.
in this world, and I think I agree. I think that's something when we talked a couple weeks ago about Marvel versus Star Wars and how sustainable was the franchise. Marvel, because it is so tied to very specific heroes, I think they sometimes, I think they ultimately are going to run out of, stuff to do.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas
or
Star
at least
Wars, it's
interest.
like we could just jump 1,000 years and drop you in, and everybody'd be perfectly happy.
Yeah,
You
I mean
know,
that's what we've been wanting. At least I want give me
Old
Old Republic
Republic.
something right
Oh,
now.
yeah, exactly.
But I love how Bad Batch is focusing on this period of the rise of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So we had Rebels, where it's kind of the start of the rebellion. That's
Yes.
after the Empire's already
But the
fairly
Empire's
established.
very established at that point.
Yeah, we're gonna get. Here's what the Empire is doing at this time, and
Yeah.
I explore this time period, please. The rise of an empire is such an interesting concept to go
So
through, especially
interesting.
in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready.
I am so down. That's a great point. The Rise of the Empire we've never seen. We've seen like the very beginning of it, right? We saw that in
Mhm.
episode 3. But how did they go from episode 3 to when we catch up with everybody in Rebels and they have full control over everything? And you're
Mhm.
like, whoa, that was, what happened in between. There's a lot of time there. Something must have gone down. And so I think, like you said, being able to see that perspective and see that rise, I think is really cool. Um, yeah, I really liked episode 1. I'm really excited for episode 2 coming out very soon. Um,
Oh yeah,
it's gonna be a thing, man.
I'm very ready. It's already like okay. I didn't think it could get much better than season 7 of Clone Wars, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was such a very just
Just
hit
perfect.
home season. Had no problems with it.
Yep.
Especially the last 2 episodes, like oh, your heart's torn out of your chest,
Oh,
right?
it's brutal.
And I'm always excited for Star Wars now. And
Hmm.
then they come in with Bad Batch, and I'm already like, okay, I guess I'm ready for even more.
Yeah.
Like just just keep it coming.
Just feed me,
Yeah,
more,
as long as
more,
long as it's not
more.
the new trilogy, I'm happy.
Yeah,
Just keep going.
as long
We,
as I see Filoni's name on it.
our savior Dave.
Our savior Dave, man, what a legend! What a
Oh,
literal legend! I mean, can you think of, as far as like fandoms are concerned, he's got to be one of the most like liked creators of any fandom.
Well, and
Like,
it's funny that, like, specifically Star Wars, but his name's attached to like Avatar as well, like The Last
yeah.
Airbender, another huge fandom
Hmm.
I'm a part of. And now he's just like, oh yeah, I can do everything.
Yeah.
You give me an animated show, I'm there. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, and then he writes for Mandalorian too.
The
It's like
man doesn't quit.
the man, and I just love how he takes the lore of Star Wars, expands upon it in logical ways, fleshes things out, plugs a bunch of plot holes that were there. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
and you know, people are saying that, I mean, we'll see what happens with the sequel trilogy. I'm curious to see what will ultimately happen. I'm in the camp of let's just decanonize it. We got rid of a bunch of canon stuff before. Like
Yeah.
when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they destroyed all of the Legends content. That's why we call it Legends now, because it's all just Legends. It's not real. It's not canon, right? So if they can do that, then they can knock out 3 movies. It's not that much. And it
Oh, for
didn't
sure.
really do much or establish much or,
I
you
mean,
know.
all they did was, oh, here's a new merchandise line, is how it felt to me.
And
Um,
and also, let's be real, those movies, I'm not saying never sell them again. Like you can leave them up on your Disney Plus as Legends content, just like all the books are still out for Legends content, you know?
yep.
Um
Didn't they just put the Star Wars Christmas special up on Disney Plus as well?
yeah, I think that's on there. Yeah, exactly. So it's fine. We
Yeah.
can leave it. You know, you don't have to like I'm not saying refund everybody because it's not
Yeah.
canon anymore. Like you
Don't retcon it, just
yeah, just
overwrite it.
say, "Yep, it was Legends. It
Yep.
was a story that people made up, you know, to tell their children to scare them that the emperor could come back at any moment and that there were these other, you know, heroes beyond
We
that we
need
saw."
the daughter of Palpatine to save us from Palpatine.
Yeah, it's a disaster. That last
Ugh.
movie is a disaster, but we've talked
Oh
about
boy.
that plenty. Bad
Yeah.
Batch. Awesome, awesome, awesome first episode. So excited for where it's going.
For
So
sure.
excited for more. I mean, the Star Wars is back in a happy space with
Oh
good
yeah.
content coming out. And as someone who personally is a much bigger Star Wars fan than a Marvel fan, it makes me so happy to have the fandom I'm probably most attached to have good content coming out right now. It is the
It's been a bit.
best. It has been a while. We got Mandalorian. We got now Bad Batch. Clone Wars season 7 is one of the best seasons of television ever.
For
And
sure.
Bad Batch. And I love that Bad Batch, you know, it makes sense. They're more militaristic, right? They're clones, they're troopers. And just the way they shoot scenes with them is all very much more military. And I like
Yes.
that. I like
Yes.
that. I also liked at the beginning the killing of the Jedi Master is like hard to watch.
It's a little brutal
It's pretty
for Clone
brutal.
Wars
And she's
animation
like
or Star Wars
screaming in
animation.
the background. Like they don't show her last breaths, but you can hear her in pure agony. And that is what I loved about Clone Wars is it wasn't afraid to have, you know, to be realistic while being animated. You know, sometimes, you know, oh, it's animated, we got to keep it a little more, you know, PG or G.
Rebels.
Rebels, to an extent, I think got stuck in that because they were having to be on Disney XD. Um, I think there's still aspects that are they had to find other ways to make it work for adults. The amount of lore that's in Rebels is astonishing. Um, and the emotional aspects of Rebels are super brutal. But they got away with a couple things in Rebels, but it wasn't as violent. You're right. that opening scene with all the mortars going off and all of that stuff, I was like, oh, this is violent. Like we're in war. This
We're in a
feels like
war
war.
zone right
This
now.
feels like a war movie, you know? It's still animated. It's still perfectly appropriate for your most kids. Um but it still touches on some of those mature feelings, and I think that's just awesome. It
Oh
makes me
yeah,
so excited for
just makes me more excited for the rest of the series.
it. Mm-hmm.
Now, we discussed it earlier this episode how sometimes you start off at your high point, it sets the expectations, and the rest of the show or movie doesn't do as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's how I felt with Without Remorse. That
Yeah.
first fight scene was great,
Yeah.
and then it just was downhill from there.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling Bad Batch won't be like that. I'm just saying it's a possibility.
True.
But we start off at this high point, and I don't know, can it keep up? But I have full faith in Dave Filoni at this
Yeah.
point.
I
So
think if you look at Dave Filoni's history, he normally starts his shows off very kind of explosive, like it's a big thing. And then he gets to work. He gets into the building. And then it for me, I mean, I had complaints with the first season of Mandalorian. In some of those middle episodes, it just felt like it wasn't going anywhere, but I was like, I gotta trust Dave. He always does this. Look at Clone
he's got
Wars.
this somewhere.
Clone Wars
Oh yeah,
started well, it started like really quick that first episode, right? But then after that, it was pretty slow there for a little while. But then it just kept building and building and building and being crazier and crazier and crazier. And then we have the ending of the glass shattering and Ahsoka staring down Maul, and I want that as a poster in my room, Like, uh,
it's
so
so
good
good.
every time. And then, yeah, I trust that I will admit sometimes Filoni can be a little slow, but normally, in my opinion, every time I've seen it, that slow character development or that slow storyline that you're trying to like just get through ends up being way bigger than you thought it was when you were first watching. So I would expect next episode's going to be not quite as big. We're not going to have cameos of both Kaden and Saw Gerrera, which we didn't even talk about yet.
Dude,
That's a big deal. I love him as a character. Like, he just got thrown into Rogue One, right? And now he just shows up everywhere. Like,
oh yeah,
they're like, oh, this is cool. Yeah, a freedom fighter that, I mean, we had seen him in Clone Wars, I guess,
yeah.
beforehand. But we've seen him in Clone Wars a little bit, and then they use him in Rogue One, and then everybody's just filling in gaps now of like, how did he get from here to here? And to see him, it makes sense that he was probably one of the, he was the first person to start being like, no, I'm not trading the separatists for the Empire. We're
Yeah,
gonna have to fight the Empire now. So I think that was cool. I think he's a good character for the Bad Batch to first come in contact with. So it'll be interesting. I feel like he might come back around. I think it might be interesting to see him come back around. I think the Bad Batch's like style kind of fits with his style a little bit, kind of that reckless style. So maybe they'll work together. Maybe that's where they were,
oh,
for
okay.
parts of things. Could be interesting. Although we know Saw Gerrera dies in Rogue One. So beyond that, were the Bad Batch around or what? We don't see them in Rogue One, so where are they at that point? Maybe they're somewhere else in the galaxy. I don't know. I think it could be interesting. But then we also have our bounty hunter character that we seen in Mandalorian. We know she's going to show up at some point in Bad Batch. So I think there's a lot more. I think
Wait,
this
wait.
episode,
We know that for sure.
yeah, she's seen in multiple trailers.
Oh, I. Oh right. Okay. Yeah. I blocked that out of
Wrong
my
character.
memory, I
Yeah.
guess.
Um so she we know is in there. And I think we talked about Mortal Kombat. We are like, if you've seen the trailers in that first 7 minutes that was on YouTube, that was kind of like all the best scenes except for maybe that last fight between Scorpion and
Yeah. I mean, we
Sub-Zero.
still saw part of that, but yeah.
Yeah, and we still see part of that. You're right, but um, like all the good scenes were in the trailer. Bad Batch, that whole first episode, there's like a two see, there's like hardly any of that was in the trailer. So I'm like,
I mean,
there's still so much more to go.
to be fair, hour-long first episode, and we have I'm gonna assume it's around 12 episode season, maybe not 12, but a lot more of content to go through in this
True.
series than Mortal Kombat as one movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
But you're right. We still have a lot to look forward to.
We have a lot to look forward to. And it looks like there's going to be 16 episodes.
16? Oh, okay. Even.
Yep.
Okay. Guessing we're going to have a typical hour-long season finale as well.
Probably. That's typical.
Or at least the Clone Wars did the same.
Yeah.
But
I'm
ready. I just keep giving me
ready.
more Star Wars content. Let's go. More Bad Batch.
And we could get more seasons, I mean, it could be a consistent show like just like Clone Wars, where we have multiple episodes. I think animated, we talked about how much we loved Clone Wars. You can do a lot with animated, as far as really, you don't have to build sets, right? For each location. Yep. You can go to a lot of locations and really move around, and have our characters interact with a lot of different people, because you can bring in one voice actor to do scenes for like 8 different episodes, and they just knock them out in a day, whereas when you're filming a TV show, you can't really do it that way. You can, in animation, you can do the voice acting first and animate it all later if you need to. So I think it lends itself to some really nice world building and a breadth of content that is just awesome.
Oh yeah. I think it's gonna keep going too.
I think so. Well, I think with that, we've chatted long enough. It's been an absolutely jam-packed episode. There was so much to get to this week. Really looking forward to next week, our next episode of Bad Batch. Some more content coming out on other fronts. So look forward to talking to you then. As always, like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this. Let us know what your thoughts were on all the myriad of content we talked about today. And what are you excited? What do you think about Omega? Interesting new character. Definitely an interesting dynamic with the crew, so it'll be fun to watch that progress as we go. Follow us on social media. They'll be linked down below. We can continue the conversation there. And with that, we'll see you next week.